All right, beautiful people, hello and welcome back to another Transmission Tuesday. If you're in the Indigo Instinct Healing Matrix on Facebook, it's Tuesday, which means it's time for another round of energy healing tips and tricks. If you're on YouTube, it's probably Friday, and I'm so grateful for your presence and for you watching this video. If you want to see these videos on time, so in energetic alignment with when I post them, hop over to Facebook and join the Indigo Instinct Healing Matrix over there, where we have a very small and mighty family of people who are interested in learning about ascension and general energy healing topics, as well as getting my moon readings, my full and new moon readings in advance, and seeing these videos every Tuesday. This week, I wanted to talk about the thing that everybody loves to hate on, which is Mercury Retrograde. We are currently in Mercury Retrograde until the 22nd of June, so right after the solstice on the 21st, and we hear all of these, I have a bit of resistance to these like Refinery 29 and Bustle and these sort of websites that are just like, this is going to be the worst Mercury retrograde ever, or how Mercury retrograde is going to F up your life. And it just makes for a portal of blame and putting your energetic frustrations and the things that are challenging you in your life towards something that isn't necessarily the problem. So I wanted to clear up why I love Mercury retrograde and what it means for me and how you can interpret it in a different way so that you don't have this like lurching feeling in your stomach of like, oh God, it's Mercury retrograde and everything is gonna get horrible and it's gonna be a disaster and I'm gonna crash my car and I'm gonna lose my job and yada 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 and everything is gonna be on fire. So the one thing I wanted to highlight is the role of Mercury as a planet. And Mercury rules communication. So not only is that relational communication, like communicating with others, communicating with those that are in your life, as well as communicating with your guides and your higher self, but it also has to do with communication in the sense of cognition and understanding. So the way you interpret events and the way you understand facts, the way you understand what is happening in a certain situation, and the way that you assess that as good or bad. Good or bad. So, the way you assess it in your own mind. So bearing in mind that communication, the planet of communication, is now rotating backwards on its axis, it's good to be aware of the fact that that just means that communication isn't necessarily going to be the same as it usually is. It doesn't mean that it's going to be impossible or that everything is going to get a lot harder, but it does mean that if you are trying to resolve a disagreement with somebody and it's not working, or you're trying to get a point across to somebody and they're not hearing you properly, especially during Mercury retrograde, the best thing to take into account or to try is to reassess your method of communication. Have you been highlighting what is wrong instead of highlighting what the solutions could be? Have you been speaking about what frustrates you instead of what you would like to see come to fruition? Or maybe it's something as simple as you're speaking in terms that are too abstract for somebody and you need to break it down to something that is a bit more simple and concrete so they can understand in more bite-sized pieces what is going on in the situation. So reevaluating how you communicate can be really helpful during Mercury retrograde because it allows you to slow down the lines and the sort of gusts of wind of communication that you would normally be putting forwards, and reassess how you're coming across and how you are trying to go about trying to reach somebody. Now, there are two zodiac signs that Mercury rules, which is Gemini, which is the season we're in right now, and Virgo. So if your sun sign is in Gemini, or your ascendant is in Gemini or Virgo, take a look at your birth chart. If you don't know what your different zodiac signs are, just Google astrology natal chart. And if you know what time you're born, that's great. If you don't, you'll still get some information about the different zodiac signs that are part of your chart, and see if you can figure out in which areas you either have Virgo or Gemini, because those areas are going to be more strongly affected at this time because their ruling planet is the planet that's in retrograde, and Mercury is a big enough planet that it's going to affect those areas of your life more significantly. Now, the whole retrograde business, the whole business of things being hard or messy or catastrophic or whatever during retrograde, I tend to frame it differently. And I 100% agree that it's definitely not the best time to take on a brand new project or try and launch a business, or, have your launch planned for the weeks that we're in retrograde. It's more of a time to focus on what you're already doing. It's like if you have a card, like a hand of cards, focus on what you have instead of focusing on what you're trying to get or what you're trying to get rid of. Just focus on what you have and how can you sort of adjust or alter or work with what you have right now, what's right in front of you, and how can you improve that without making any drastic changes. So, although I find Mercury retrograde is more of a time for slowing down a little, I often envision it as if you are a captain of a boat, you are just staying the course. You're not doing any of those drastic, big wheel spinny things where the boat changes a totally different direction. You're just staying the course and you're working away on what you've got in front of you for now. And that often tends to be how you can really receive a lot of the medicine of Mercury retrograde, by being willing to evaluate what you've got right in front of you. Because not only does Mercury retrograde encourage you to slow down, it also gives you this opportunity to sort of cosmically have a do-over. If you think about an object that's traveling through space like this, and then all of a sudden it's traveling forward still, but it's moving backwards. It's kind of like you have this opportunity to start over and to start back from square one. So if you've been working on a project and it's just not really resonating with you, or it's just not really feeling the way that you want it to feel, then take Mercury retrograde as an opportunity to take a look at what you have in front of you to see if you can maybe make some small adjustments and give yourself a bit of a start over and to try something again. So those are kind of the main points. And I guess one more concept that I really like about Mercury retrograde, which tends to come up as quite a frustration, because the occurrence of this phenomenon and the reality that it's Mercury retrograde doesn't always go hand in hand. But if we think about Mercury retrograde being a little bit of a do-over and a slowing down and sort of a repeat, it also means that we often get these revisitations. So we sometimes get people that used to be very important in our lives come back around, or these connections with people that we haven't heard from in a long time just pop up all of a sudden. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to bring them back into your life, but it does mean that there is some sort of message and medicine that is coming along with the fact that they are popping back up for you during this retrograde season. So whether that's, they made you feel a particular way and you're now learning how to give that to yourself, or maybe they're reminding you that you're kind of a badass and you can really do this sort of thing, this thing that you have your heart and your mind set on. Or maybe it's a reminder that you used to be in a certain place in your life and now you're in a very different place. These arrivals of these people who used to be in your life and are now showing up again in your Mercury retrograde season are delivering medicine and are delivering messages for you to be able to give you an understanding of how you are growing and how you have grown from where you were the last time they were in your life. So that is just a little snapshot of why I actually love Mercury retrograde. I love that it gives me a chance to just focus on what I'm doing in the moment and not take on any new projects, especially if you're somebody who tends to be a bit of a yes person. It's really helpful to use Mercury retrograde as a reminder that what you are doing right now is plenty. It doesn't matter if you feel particularly productive right now. Moving through Mercury retrograde at the pace that works for you is going to be the healthiest thing you can do for yourself to be able to feel like you actually got a bit of a cosmic rest during this period, so you can feel a little bit more refreshed and prepared moving forwards as we exit the retrograde on the 22nd of June. So that is the Transmission Tuesday for this week. Thank you all so much for being part of the Healing Matrix. If you're in Facebook, please leave me a comment to let me know how you found this video. I would love to hear from the family in the Matrix, and I of course love to hear from the people on YouTube. YouTube is my favorite world on the internet, and I wish you all a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Tuesday or Friday. Ciao for now.